Well, hi, I'm Tracy, and I have Terry in the studio today, and we are talking about when your kids have an addiction. And so, Terry, why don't you share with us why this particular topic is something that you are familiar with?
We have 3 children, and 2 of the 3 have struggled with addiction. And I think that we thought this would be a really short-term issue, and we would nip it in the bud. And the reality of it is we're here 15 years later, still dealing with it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So this has been a long journey.
For sure.
And I think your story can be helpful to others out there. Okay, so we're just going to hit some key words here, Terry,
Right.
and for you just to kind of share your insight so other people can benefit from your experience. So why don't you just briefly share about addiction and its complexity and how people should view it?
Okay, I think one of the things that we found is that I think when we first started this, we thought, oh, well, we'll just, we know stuff about addiction. And the reality of it is that it was way more complex than we ever thought. Mm-hmm. We had to do way more research. If you had your idea of what it was from media or movies, mm-hmm. or it was very, very different. And so it took a lot of research on our part to find resources and help.
Okay, so you said that you had 2 kids that struggled with addiction. I imagine neither of their stories were the same.
Right. They were very, very different. The way that they started using drugs was very different. Their personalities are very different. So their treatment methods were very different.
Okay.
So, and I think that treatment component is very important because there's kind of this idea that, well, if I can just get my kid into treatment for 30 days, it'll be great. Okay. And that was not the reality for us. And not for very many. Research shows that it takes way longer than that, and that there are different types of treatment, and what works for one does not work for the other.
Okay, right. So what I'm hearing you say is addiction is complex. It's going to be unique to every person. So you need to be prepared to do your research and understand it. That treatment, you're going to have to do your research also, that there is not one size does not fit all.
Exactly.
Okay, and should people be prepared that maybe one time in treatment's not going to solve it?
Absolutely. Our daughter went in, we thought it was going to be a 30-day stay, and 2 years later she finally graduated. And our son has been in and out of probably, I've lost count, 4 or 5 treatment centers until we found one that fit his personality. He was more of a one-on-one person, where our daughter was more of a group person. And so there are just so many facets of it.
Okay, so Terry, here's another word that we hear a lot, rock bottom. Right. What does that mean in addiction?
I think that we had this idea that if our kids finally hit rock bottom, that everything would fall into place. They would just immediately go to treatment and they would get better. And what we've actually found is that rock bottom is very different for other people, for most people. The reality of it is that there was, for some people, they can hover right above rock bottom and just live miserable lives, and others will dip below it and lose their battle. And so it's they might not ever hit rock bottom. I mean, it may be something else that finally sends them to treatment. They may be ordered there by the court. There are a lot of different ways. But don't wait for that, I guess would be my...
And again, as I'm hearing you say, whether it's the reason why people go into, like how addiction comes into the family or how it presents itself for every kid is different. Treatment for every kid, if situation's going to be different.
Right.
Rock bottom also sounds like a very individualized kind of a thing, and some people hit it, some people don't.
Right.
So I guess we can't live with that expectation of necessarily hoping for that.
Yeah, and I think for our kids, we thought, the first time they went to jail, it would be their rock bottom. The first time they lost a friend to addiction, it would be rock bottom, and those weren't. And what I would think would be my rock bottom, they hit so many times. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so let's talk for a minute too about how do you handle life in the family with the addict? You talked about this idea of personalizing the addiction for yourself or not understanding your own limitations to deal with it.
Right. And I think that it's really hard in the beginning because you want to figure out how it happened.
Yeah.
What did I do? What didn't I do? Mm-hmm. What, they grew up in a way that,
we loved them. We cared for them.
I mean, these weren't kids who struggled, and so it's really hard to wrap your brain around that, and you can spend so much emotional energy on that as opposed to we need to get help.
Okay.
And then there's this whole family dynamic part of it that you are so hyper-focused on the addict that you can let your marriage go to the wayside. You can let the other kids who aren't the addict get no
Lost
attention. And so I think that there are all those things that you don't even think about going into it, that you suddenly, you really need to focus, how is this affecting the family, and how you don't want to lose your whole family.
So do you encourage people then to communicate through that, to get into professional counseling? How do people?
Well, you need to talk about it with each other. For us, our family, we set up some personal rules. With my husband and I, nobody got to make a major decision like kicking a child out of the house without talking with the other first. But if any kind of therapy, I mean, it may mean individual, it may mean family, it may mean both.
But to talk to somebody about it.
Definitely.
Okay, and then the last thing I thought might be good to talk about is, how do you know the kind of boundaries you should draw?
I think that it's really hard, and I think for us, we found that we needed to be flexible, because we would say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then 3 days into it, we would be like, yeah, we haven't slept and it's not getting any better. That's not going to work. So I think, you just need to learn to be flexible with those things. I mean, you do have to set some rules about, and rules is not the great word, but we're not going to punish you, but you don't get to use drugs in our house.
Okay.
And if we're finding paraphernalia in the house, you don't get to stay here.
Okay.
And, one thing that we learned in treatment with our kids is that they are incredibly resourceful.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to taking care of themselves.
Okay.
And so even though those times when I was frantic about what was happening, I would find if they were not in the house, I would find that they had been fine. They had been staying with friends. And so there's a lot of stuff about, I think you just need to be flexible. You can't say we're going to do this and
then never evaluate it again.
Right.
Okay. So even with boundaries, the same thing, just about the family dynamics, to talk about it, communicate, get professionals involved to help you think through, how should we be handling this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Terry, thank you so much for your insights into this. And I know this has got to be such a challenging thing, and to watch two kids struggle through it. But I appreciate, because you're sharing some insights that other people can benefit from, for sure. Right. So I hope this information was helpful to you. Use those questions and talk about it with someone in your life. Thanks. We'll see you in the next video.